In this video, I'm going to talk about a technique that involves 2 scenes from the future and 2 scenes from the past, and how you can use this technique to move yourself away from intrusive thoughts. And of course, by intrusive thoughts, this could also be known as obsessive or obsessional thoughts, or simply negative repeating thoughts. I'm Orla Kirby. I'm a therapist and I specialise in helping people to move themselves away from severe anxiety and or OCD. So, onto the technique. The first thing you want to do is to get a pen and paper, and I do think a pen and paper is better here, ideally, compared to typing. But of course, there are other ways you could type. You could use your voice and speak this out loud. So whatever works for you. And you want to be creating 2 scenes from your future, right? So think about a scene from 5 years and a scene for 10 years in the future. And think about what age you'll be at those times. And just to kind of get your brain moving around this kind of idea. Oh, sorry, my camera has gone sideways. There we go. Just to get yourself kind of thinking in the right direction. First of all, think about 5 years' time and think about what would an ideal working day be, and then what would an ideal just day off, like a Saturday, be, and what would a really ideal holiday be at that time in your life. And now I want you to think about 10 years. Oh, like how old will I be then? How old will my partner, kids, friends, family, people I know be, just so that you have a sense of reality about that. And then think, okay, at that point in 10 years, what would my ideal working day be? And what would my ideal holiday be? And what would my ideal Saturday, just kind of day off, be? Okay, and, sorry, adjusting the camera again. Once you've got that kind of general idea and you've played around with that a little bit, just pick one of those for each. So you could pick, a holiday in 10 years and a working day in 5 years, or the other way around, right? And once you have that, you just want to really make that very vivid and compelling. So ask yourself really detailed questions. What can I see? What are all the details of what I can see? What am I feeling? Like both touch, right? Both touch. What does the chair I'm sitting in feel like? Or what am I standing on? And what's the feel beneath my feet? Am I warm or cold? All of that kind of physical. What am I wearing? How's that feel? All of the physical sensation stuff. And then also emotionally, how am I feeling? So we've got look, feel, you're just going through the senses essentially. What can I hear? What are those sounds that I can hear? And all of the sounds, right? The really noticeable ones and the background ones. And then what can I smell? Can I smell anything? Okay. Is there food and drink involved? If so, what can I taste? Okay, and once you've taken yourself through all the senses in that way, you want to just spend some time really enjoying imagining it, right? So doing some deep breathing. You've got it all down on paper, or maybe you've drawn a picture of it, or you've spent some time creating this, and then you want to go into a relaxed state and just really enjoy it. Do some deep breathing and really enjoy the scene that you've made. And it's quite helpful if you can know whether you are more kind of kinesthetic, more about the feel of things, or more visual, or more led by sound, if sound impacts and affects you more, and if that's how you imagine more easily. And if you want to know more about that, which will help you with this exercise, you could go to orlakirby.com /who am I, and there's a whole series of questions you can answer there that will give you a sense of, am I more visual or am I more kinesthetic? You may feel like you have a sense of that anyway, in which case great, but you might not. And also sometimes it's confusing, and it's actually something we can be mistaken about. So once you have that knowledge and okay, I'm more visual, you could then think, right, I'll really build up the visual, and in order to enter into this scene, I'm going to surround myself with the visual first, and then I'm going to layer on top of that maybe the sounds. If sounds are kind of the next easy one for me, and then on top of that, then I'm going to layer the feel of the thing, right, and the place and the people and how I'm feeling and so on. So, however, someone who's really kinesthetic might want to start with feel, right, and you might want to really go into detail about the textures. So, absolutely every texture in the room. You might want to move around to different places in the scene, and there are different textures, different feels. So, and then an emotional feeling, really go to, so that you can experience the scene really just by feel. And then move on to one of the other elements, the sound maybe next, or the smell, and then the sound, and then the look of the thing, right? So there's no sort of one right way to do this. We all imagine differently, and although we all have the ability, sorry, I'm just going to tell something on my thing. Although we all have the ability to imagine in all these different ways, we have our natural tendencies as well. So it's good to work with and go with your natural tendency. Okay. So, and the same thing for the 10-year scene, build it up in exactly the same way. And you want to ideally make them fairly different from each other, right? So they feel like quite different places, different rooms in your mind that you're making. They want to be quite distinct from each other. Okay. And you want to make it as lovely as possible, right? So put in all your favourite things, right? Why not? Or whatever you would like to put in. So think about, what would be the great music to be playing at this point? If you love the smell of coffee, put in the smell of coffee, right? Think about creating really enjoyable experiences for yourself. Okay. And then you go back to the past scenes. And for these, we're looking for a scene where you felt very calm, or very happy, or both works really well. Or it could be just a scene where you have a strong sense of, this is who I am. I'm like this, and that's great. Or I'm really good at this, or I love doing this. Moments where you had a particularly strong sense of yourself in a really positive, strong way. That can be really useful too. So once you've kind of identified a couple of memories that would be useful like that, you just want to really go into detail with them in a kind of similar way, really. So sometimes people say, well, I have this memory and I know there's like a really strong emotion there, and when I think of it, I do feel happy, or I do feel proud, or I do feel brave, or whatever, but I can't quite remember, I don't know what colour the walls were, or I don't know what I could smell. It was 10 years ago, or whatever. Maybe I was a child even, and I can't, really it's very fuzzy kind of a memory. That's fine, you can still use that. And what you would do in this instance is kind of fill in the details. So, flesh it out, put in some compelling imaginary stuff, right? So if it's a memory of inside somewhere, and you love the colour purple, you could make the walls purple, or you could put a purple painting on the wall, or, hopefully you get what I'm saying. You can colour in the memory. And sometimes people feel like, I can't do that. I'm just making that up. But remember, the purpose of this isn't for, to give a really accurate historical report of what happened at the time. We are more going with emotion here, right? And creating a beautiful experience for you in your mind. And you know that you're doing this, right? You know that what you're making here is something that's part from your memory and part imagined. And anyway, our memories are always, have an imaginary element to them, because we all remember things differently. And if you asked, 10 different people who experienced the same event, what their memory of it is, they would all be different. So we're all doing more imagining and inventing in our memories than we realise anyway. It's not a very objective thing. And it's not like it's going to confuse you. You'll be aware which elements you've imagined and added in, and that's fine. Think of it as like a composite thing you're making, right? Okay. Or it might be that once you really go into the memory, all of this stuff does come back to you, and you are really able to richly experience, the kind of physical detail of what was happening at the time, the sensory detail. And again, same thing, go through all the 5 senses. What can I see? What can I feel? What can I hear? What can I taste or smell? And really, in full detail, go through all of that, right? You can even make a small little narrative. I'd recommend the same place, but you could imagine an afternoon, or you could imagine an hour, or, and you're in slightly different places, or you're moving around the same place. So just really enjoy it. Allow yourself to really enjoy doing this. And again, just like with the future scenes, with these past scenes, spend some time then closing your eyes and just imagining it, just enjoying it, at least 3 or 4 times before you try using this technique. And then basically the next stage, once you have your scenes, is to use them to redirect, right? So you're experiencing a negative or obsessional thought, and it's almost like, here's one I made earlier, right? You have these scenes that you've made super vivid and compelling in your mind. And you do need to do this very richly and in detail. I would spend a good, half hour to an hour on each one in the first instance, writing down, an A4 page or 2 A4 pages about them, or drawing something or painting something, or really talking about it in great detail with someone else, so that you really feel like you are there, like it's a real vivid thing, okay? Because it kind of needs to be powerful enough for what we're going to then ask it to do. And then in that moment, having done all that work, and also put yourself in a relaxed state using deep breathing. And if you want instructions on deep breathing, you could go to orlakirby.com/learn to meditate. And there are videos and audios that will help you with that. So you want to go into a relaxed state and imagine your way into each of these scenes, and have lots of practice doing that first when you're feeling, pretty okay, right? When you're deliberately putting yourself in a relaxed state. And then the trick of it is to notice, and you may be someone who's very aware of your repeating negative thoughts, or maybe not. So when you notice, oh, okay, that's what's happening. There's a negative repeating thought, or an obsessive or an intrusive thought happening. Okay, you think, okay, that's happening. Yeah, and you try to be gentle with yourself about this, right? I know it's easier said than done, but the idea is to notice it in kind of a pretty just kind of observational way, right? So you're not saying, oh, there I go again with that stupid obsessive thinking, or, oh no, I'm repeating this negative, or this is terrible. You're just noticing. Oh, I'm noticing, okay, that I'm doing that. And right now, and I'm not saying this is always what you want to do. Sometimes there may be other approaches you want to take, but right now, I'm wanting to shift myself away to a different kind of experience, a different way of thinking, a different kind of thinking. And I get to choose. It's my mind. So it's fine for me to choose what I think about, right? And you are going to redirect deliberately to this scene that you've made earlier. Okay, and in the next video, I'm going to show you a technique for getting there, right? For almost an in-between step you can put in if you're finding this difficult, but you don't necessarily need the in-between step. So do watch the next video to see about that, because that may be helpful to you. And sometimes you may need that, sometimes you may not. But the way to do it without that in-between step is simply to think, oh, okay, yeah, I'm having that negative repeating thought. I'm going to draw around me, the details of that scene that I imagined before. So if you're doing this as a future scene, you think, oh yeah, that holiday in 5 years' time, what were the sounds of it? If you're a very auditory person, you're very led by sound, what were the sounds of it? Okay, and once you can really hear the sounds, what was the feel of that? What could I feel with my hands? What could I feel with my body? Was I warm or was I cold? And once you're really experiencing that, you layer on the next level. Okay, what did it look like? What could I see? What were all the details and the colours of what I could see? Okay, and then so you're kind of entering into the experience of it gradually. You're not expecting yourself to do it all at once. And this is quite a kind of, it's a difficult thing to do, right? And that's part of why it works, because you are, or maybe you won't find it difficult, in which case, great, right? People are to different extents connected with their imagination, depending on what they do for a living, personality, how much this has been encouraged or discouraged by yourself and other people in your life. So maybe you're going to find this super easy, in which case, great. But it may be a challenge, and that's actually okay, because that can be part of why it's working, because you're doing this, quite sort of challenging imaginative work, and that shifts you into a whole different way of using your brain. That's very different from how your brain works when you were doing kind of negative repeated thinking. So you summon it around you and just allow yourself to enjoy that. And you will find that the other thought, lessens and or disappears, right? And that the impact of that will become more the more you practice and the more you implement this. It does require you to be able to go vividly into the memory, and that will be easier with 2 things, right? One is just practice that you've built it up richly in the first place, like I was describing in the beginning. You've really done that work. You've made that room in your mind very vivid and compelling and enjoyable, and you've practiced going into it. And And then the second thing that can make this work more easily is that you are regularly practicing deep relaxation. Again, there's so many resources and books for this, or you can go on a meditation course, or, but if you want my one, it's orlakirby.com/learn to meditate. And then that you are practicing deep relaxation, and ideally that you're linking deep relaxation with these scenes, that you've practiced doing both at once, because that's going to be a helpful association using it in the moment. Okay, so really great luck using this technique. Do feel free to email me. It's orla@orlakirby.com if you have any questions or thoughts after using this technique. And in the next video, I'm going to show you almost an in-between step that you can use to step into using this technique more easily. Okay, see you in the next video.